Thank you, Speaker. I rise to make a brief contribution to the Environmental Planning and Assessment Planning Systems Reform Bill 2025. I do so as a proud representative of my community, and I want to stress how important it is for me to convey their views in this place. I say from the outset that I'm fully supportive of the goal to streamline the planning system in New South Wales. Removing unnecessary bureaucratic red tape is essential. We all agree that the current planning system is slow, complicated, and often frustrating for everyone. For residents, councils, and industry who have a really important job delivering more homes in this state. Housing affordability is a critical issue. We all accept that, and consistently I've worked in a bipartisan way and in a productive way by putting up ideas in this chamber to make sure we positively contribute constructively to addressing this problem. I understand the challenges of housing affordability more than most. I understand the challenges of housing affordability more than most, experiencing firsthand how difficult it is for young families to buy a home. And I'm the first person to tell you that I want to do everything in my power to make sure that young people don't give up on the Aussie dream of owning their own home. We know that supply isn't and hasn't met demand in the housing market for many years, and increasing housing supply is part of the solution to this housing crisis. But I do hold serious concerns about how this bill approaches community participation and the broader impact on our environment and local character. One of the most concerning changes in this bill is the removal of planning panels and more broadly the reduction of community voice in planning decisions. From my experience serving on local council, I can tell you this with confidence. When community are genuinely involved in planning decisions, the outcomes are far better. You get projects that fit the character of the area, that have community buy-in, and that consider local amenities and the needs of residents. Removing that vital community voice doesn't streamline progress. It damages trust in government and leads to poorer outcomes. In my area, Canada Bay Council has consistently met and even exceeded our housing targets set by the state government. And we achieved this with active community participation. We didn't just approve developments, we worked with residents to identify and plan for infrastructure to support new homes and growing communities. We didn't need to override local voices or cut them out of the process to meet housing targets. We proved that community participation and housing growth can coexist. This has to be part of the equation. There's no ifs or buts about it. The community needs to understand not just what is being built, but what infrastructure like schools, transport, roads, parks, health services will be built to support that growth. And consultation is key. What troubles my community is the more than 30,000 new homes planned for our area without any commitment to infrastructure. Not a single dollar to upgrade Concord Hospital's emergency department. These changes, like the Homebush Todd, were rammed through, and my community felt that throughout the entire process. I take this opportunity to share a bit about that experience for local residents that I represent. The first iteration of the Homebush Todd proposed removing an entire primary school with an established school community, Our Lady of Assumption in North Strathfield, and replacing it with a park. In an area set to get 18,000 more homes, the Department of Planning and the government was essentially saying to this growing community, you can have a school or you can have a park, but you can't have both. The school wasn't even notified about the proposed changes to its zoning. Residents had to register for the consultation sessions, all of them booked out quickly, meaning some didn't even have the opportunity to participate and show up. Together with the community, we were able to work to advocate for a better outcome. I wrote to the Minister for Planning and I acknowledge his presence in the chamber today and the department about these concerns. What this example should show is that without community participation in the process, we wouldn't have been able to stop that change, and we now have a better outcome in a situation where this well-loved primary school can keep its doors open and educate future generations, and the community also gets new open space to support a growing area. Speaker, you can't have a robust planning system without meaningful input from the community. It's not just short-sighted, it's plain wrong. That's why I'm supporting sensible amendments to this bill. Amendments like introducing the single community participation plan across the entire state, so that in my community and across New South Wales, residents can expect a consistent and fair opportunity to have their say. Amendments to standardised notification and public exhibition requirements across all planning authorities are reasonable so that communities know when developments are happening and how to have input, no matter which council or agency is making the decision. I know that right now in my community there is so much confusion about who the consent authority is for DAs. And this amendment ensures that no matter the consent authority, no matter who is making that determination, the community is able to have its say. Because participation shouldn't be optional, it should be a minimum standard in planning. We can and should make this legislation more democratic and support participation from our communities, because they're not obstacles to development, they are partners in shaping livable communities with amenity. Another aspect that worries my community is how this bill might sideline environmental protections and the preservation of local character, including in heritage conservation areas in Drummoyne. My community is experiencing this at the moment following the introduction of the low and mid-rise housing SEP. I'm also supporting an amendment to establish a joint select committee to review the Housing Development Authority. This authority is being given extraordinary planning powers, and with great power always should come great accountability. This bipartisan committee is a reasonable, responsible step to ensure that we get the balance right. It doesn't stop the work of the authority, but it adds an important layer of oversight so that decisions are transparent, driven by public interest, and so that it continues to reflect the Housing Accord's goals. Speaker, planning is not just about numbers and building. The most fundamental principle of planning, I believe, is creating communities. It's about people's lives, their connection to the place that they live, and protecting and promoting the environment. We must ensure that any reforms don't come at the expense of our parks, roads, and in my case, in my electorate, the more than 35 kilometres of foreshore we're blessed to have, and the unique character that makes each one of our communities special. There are some great examples of this through community activity. Successful campaigns have been won to promote better access to the foreshore in new developments, and that came from the participation of people in my local community. I'm not against reform, in fact I welcome it, but reform must be done carefully. And it's for those reasons I ask the government to consider and accept the sensible and reasonable amendments put forward by the opposition in good faith. Yes, by all means, simplify the Act. Yes, hold underperforming councils accountable, but do not dismantle the community's role in shaping where they live. Streamlining planning shouldn't come at the cost of transparency, community trust, or environmental protections. Speaker, I reiterate my commitment to work in a bipartisan and constructive way to get the best outcome. You can achieve growth and housing affordability, you can have approvals in a timely manner, and at the same time you can have a system that reflects and empowers the community to participate and have their say. I thank the House.